let's start with Rob Zell, offensive line coach, of course, there with Jonathan DeCoster. We'll hear from him, I'm sure, later on this spring as well. But we'll get started with Rob Zell, of course, been here the whole time as Billy Napier, going into his fourth season as well. Been here the whole time with Billy Napier. And has plenty to say about this offensive line group.
This is by far the deepest offensive line room that we've had since we've been here. We got guys that can play, and recruiting's first about evaluation. Everybody wants a 5-star and 4-star. I get it, and there's some that you want, and then there's some you kind of look at, go, I don't see that with my eye. But Coach Napier does a great job of evaluating offensive linemen as well. He's a closet offensive line coach, and may be able to have a team of O-line coaches that we have and develop them in the way we break down individual. We script. There's nobody never standing around. There's a year-round plan for development. It's not a one-day deal. It's not a one-week deal. It's repeatedly doing the same thing over and over, revamping it, quality controlling your work. And I do like the room. It's really talented.
Marcus Masco moving over to center. What went into that, and what are you seeing from him so far?
He's done a really, really good job. He has. It's not. It's not easy to put your hand on the ball to snap. Then you got to call the front, make the mic declaration, and get the offensive line on the same page. So, believe it or not, snapping has not been the issue. You think it kind of would have some issue there, but he's been really clean with it, and so he's going to continue to get better there. I see a bright future there for him. Really, really pleased there.
And obviously, Jake coming back for yourself, just how big is it to have an All-American center leading your unit, and how big is that for Masco to learn?
Yeah, Marcus is not the only center. There's other guys in there that put their hands on the ball to be able to learn from Jake, and obviously having Jake back with the experience, he's a good player, just a great person. He does everything the right way, and he's the glue in there in the offensive line, and other people see that. And so when you recruit a freshman, they don't know any different. They see that that's the standard in the room. So very pleased with him, yeah.
Rod Kearney at guard, I know he's gotten a little bigger too. What do you think so far?
He's doing really well. That's his natural position to play guard. I think sometimes when you're a guy that come in to play center, a little spinning a little bit, then he's going to guard where it's a little, you got sideboards next to you, and the communication aspects off his plate. So I'm pleased with him for sure. And not to say that he can't go back in there and put his hand on the ball. I think sometimes if you go out there and play guard, it slows it down a little bit at center sometimes.
Do you still keep cross-training Bryce, or do you want him to focus on right tackle?
Right now he's just focusing on right tackle. But listen, Bryce has played left. He's played at all 5 positions. So, once you go out there and competing for the starting right tackle spot, he can go in there and play another position. This won't be nothing for him.
He said that's where he spent most of his first year with the right tackle. Does he have a comfort level there because of that background? Yeah,
he does. Bryce is just a really good athlete. He's can bend, he has twitch, he has the size. There's some tackles that, hey, can you go in there and play center? It's a foreign world for him in there to be able to bend. And he's one of the only guys that I've ever coached that has the skill set to play all 5. Now, will we have to go in there and play center? Probably not for us, So we got some talent there. We got some guys that can do it. But, he's doing really well.
Who are the other guys in the mix at right tackle?
Everybody's right now is we're playing, but right now on the right side, you got Bryce Lovett. You got Caden Jones, who's doing really well. You got Devin Manuel. On the left side, you have Austin Barber Fletcher, and going with the 1s and 2s right there. So, as this thing goes, how are we going to get the best 5? What's the best 5 combination? What's the long road going to look like? So, but we have options, which is a really good thing.
Man, that's probably the best thing for this offensive line we haven't been able to say for a while, and why it's a team strength now. Not just because 4 or 5 starters are returning, but Florida has some options. There's finally some depth I think at this offensive line. Now, hey, look, even the guys, if it's the same 4 guys that we claim as starters, and they're the ones who even they can take a jump, even they can play better. You'll hear that in just a bit with some of their thoughts as well. But as we kind of pointed out coming into this, they didn't have the best start to last season either, and got better and better and better as the season went on. And you're hoping that, the end of last season is kind of a launching point for these guys. But returning 4 or 5 starters, And of course, starts with Jake Slaughter, All-American center, Barber, George, Harris, back in the starting roles. But just to create competition, I think Barber, Harris, and Slaughter, man, probably pretty wrapped up, but I think there might be some competition on that right side. I mean, Slaughter, 82 overall PFF grade, of course. When you're an All-American, you're going to have a high grade like that, of course. I mean, Damian George had a 70.6. Lovett with a 69.9. They were, among Florida's top offensive players overall there. But of course, you just heard Rob Sale talk about that major battle going on at right tackle, replacing Brendan Crenshaw-Dixon, who by the end of the season was playing really well at right tackle. He just allowed 1 sack, no quarterback hits, and 316 pass blocking snaps. He had an 81.6 PFF grade. So, I mean, if you want to go by that, that was something to look for. But you just heard Bryce Lovett leads the competition. I think he'll probably get that as long as it trends the way we thought coming into spring, the way spring continues. I think Bryce Lovett's going to have that right tackle spot pretty much there. But you heard Devin Manuel, Caden Jones, Fletcher Westfall, going to the other side as well to back up Austin Barber. But Manuel Jones maybe fighting for that right tackle spot as well. But I think that's going to be Bryce Lovett. But when you can throw in names like Devin Manuel and Caden Jones and Fletcher Westfall, I mean, you can start to see where Florida's building some depth at the tackle spot now as well. So I think it is a competition, but a competition Lovett was probably going to end up walking away with by the time spring practice ends. Then, of course, you start going to position changes. Some of the storyline here, and Florida trying to get more depth at guard. I mentioned I think it's a competition on the right side too between Roderick, Kearney, and Damian George. I think it's a real competition there. And Damian George, I thought, was playing also pretty well by the time the season ended last year. And if you see a Roderick Kearney supplant him, that's probably a really good sign that Kearney came in his third season now. This is his third season, highly recruited. Had to take some time to get his body in shape and switching positions. Of course, he was playing center for a while. He's playing center with a broken hand when he first come to Florida. And we remember that spring game when Roderick Kearney had to be out there as an early enrollee, playing center, not really his position of choice. And we saw the struggles there. But, hey, look, now switching to guard, more his natural position there. Now opens the door for Jason Zendamela, Marcus Maskall to be available at center now. So I think one more time, depth is starting to be Zendamela, really, really highly recruited. Never played a down at USC, transfers into Florida last year, highly recruited. Marcus Maskall, pretty high recruit himself as well, or higher recruit than, kind of the – you heard Rob Sale mention that. Hey, look, we all love the 4 and 5 stars, but they evaluate just a bit different. And it was interesting to hear how he kind of propped up Napier a bit too for the offensive line recruiting there. So yeah, we'd all love the 4 and 5 stars, of course, and we've seen the fair share go to other schools. But now the recruiting has uptick a bit, and I think when you see Zendamela and a Kearney and with what Florida's done there with Tavares Dice this last cycle too. I mean, there's some sprinkles in there, but without the 4 or 5 stars. When you're going into year 4, this is when you really should be seeing the development happen. So your Marcus Mascalls, your Roderick Kearneys, your Fletcher Westfalls, you Caden Jones, all the those type of players. This is when we should start, seeing those guys more, and we would see them more. But Florida's got the fortunate, being so fortunate now that you had Austin Barber coming back. Najee Harris was, one of those recruited guys, early on in the tenure. So him going into his third season, he's been playing since he was a freshman and playing a lot of snaps as a freshman. He's another player where, okay, he was really highly recruited at one time, fell a bit in the rankings before he signed with Florida. But you see it, in his third year, developed into a starter now. Started last year, starting this year. But Jake Slaughter coming back, that kind of holds back from a guy that you recruited along the way to take over. I mean, so Florida's in a fortunate situation. Some bodies came back that you're not necessarily hearing from some of the younger guys yet, but being able to hang on to those. Not a lot of transfers out. So Florida's going to be developing these guys for quite some time. And when it's their time, besides the on-field experience, they're going to be in the weight room for a few years. They're going to be in the playbook for a few years. And you hope along the way this year, and offensive line, you don't rotate. You're not rotating a whole lot. When you go look at PFF and you look at snap counts, it's, you're these starting 4 offensive linemen that we're talking about played a ton of snaps last year. So you don't really want to rotate if you don't have to. You want your continuity. You'll hear that word brought up a good bit here. But you'd like to sprinkle those guys in so when they have to take over, when Florida loses a good bit of these bodies after this 2025 season, you hope this spring goes a long way in making some of those guys ready. You hope when this 2025 season, Florida can play with some cushions a bit, work some guys in too. If a guy needs breather, or if you got some confidence and you don't need these guys to play so many snaps, well, maybe you can go slide somebody in and feel comfortable with it. So, your Zandamellas, your Mascals, your Westfalls, I hope we see them at some point this season. And then I hope it's in more of a positive light, just going out there and getting them snaps, or they have the confidence to put them out there and go get them some snaps while your starters take a rest and the drop-off is not there. Cam Waits, of course, somebody who's been in the program for a while. He'll be cross-training at multiple spots, so somebody you'll see along the offensive line. So, look, it's a pretty deep group. I think you can start pointing to some depth being developed. We'll just see how it all shakes out as far as snap count goes and everything. But on the surface, 4 or 5 starters coming back. I'm going to be interested to see if it's 4 or 5 starters by the time I'm really interested in that right guard battle. I do think it's a real battle between Damian George and Roderick Kearney. We'll see how far it goes.